Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about, will she ever reach out? It feels like when you're going through a breakup, they're never going to reach out, doesn't it? Particularly when your ex is cold and short with you and not making any effort to show like they are this person that cares about you.
Mm-hmm. And the more distance you see, the more you worry.
Yeah. And it really feels like it's going to last like that forever. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't always last like that. Okay? People become very cold and guarded right around a breakup because if they're not, many of us will continue to badger, harass, and push our own agenda.
Mm-hmm. And it could also be a way to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're kind of setting a boundary with you, but they often feel like a very different person, like not even the same person. You're like, who is this person? I don't even know this person anymore. And so we kind of feel like it's going to stay like that forever, but it does change, especially when you start to leave them alone and allow them to think about things. Right?
Exactly.
So you always want to consider that, okay? So we got a good email coaching today. This is going to be a confusing one, okay? So we had to talk about this one.
Yeah, for a good amount of time.
Yeah, because we really looked at some of the details of this one, so you got to stay really attuned to this one, because this one is going to leave you kind of thinking, what is going on here? Is she going to reach out? Now, they live in different states, and they're both in the military. Now, they knew each other in high school, and they had like a crush on each other back in high school, but nothing ever happened between them. And so I'll just go ahead and get into what he says here. He says, we met our freshman year of high school, and I had a crush on her from day one. And she admired me, but we never shared romantic connection at the time. I went to accomplish my childhood dream of becoming very successful in the military. I'm not going to say exactly what he does, but he is very successful, okay? She had met another man that she married and had an unplanned child with. Tragically, though, her husband was killed in a car accident during their pregnancy, and she went on to raising the child herself.
Wow.
So you can imagine how horrible that would be. You're pregnant and your husband dies in a car accident. That's awful.
Yeah, and also in that age period when you're in your mid-20s and planning an entire life together. This was completely unexpected, and I highly think that it was traumatic for her.
Oh yeah, that's huge. I think that's a big part of this situation. I had actually gone on one or two dates with a girl years ago who had lost her fiance in combat, and that had a big effect on her, and I just think she wasn't over that.
Yeah.
Right? Because she was planning on marrying that guy. So that has a big impact on you. So I'm sure this had a huge impact on her. She got out of the military and was solely focused on raising her child and ensuring he had the best upbringing possible. She bought a home and overcame the loss of her husband and was happy and healthy as ever along with her child. So she did a good job of overcoming that situation.
Right. And I also want to make a comment that with a grief like that, it's not necessarily that you overcome it, forget about it, and move on. Of course, that loss will always be with you to some degree. And there will be certain things in life that will trigger you moving forward. So healing, it's not a destination, it's a journey.
I would think that there's going to be anniversary reactions around the time of the accident, when it happened during that year. Probably the father's birthday, whenever that may have been.
Right.
Those two things are big things that are going to come up for her.
Right. And even the child's birthday. Imagine delivering a baby and thinking or expecting your husband to be there and him not being there. Those are, pivotal moments in her life, I'm sure.
Yeah, those very difficult. A little over 2 months ago, she reached out to me on Instagram in response to a story that I had posted. I was utterly shocked as I wasn't expecting it, but the conversation began, and I came to find out that over the past few years, she had developed romantic feelings for me because of my accomplishments and personality. Okay, so she's watching him on Instagram all this time and feeling attracted to him and probably curious about him. It's good. After a little time, we were FaceTiming, calling, texting, and Snapchatting every day when we weren't busy with things. The connection got deeper and deeper by the day as we were finally engaging in the way we've both wanted for a long time. A month into talking, she came to see me and we got to engage physically and emotionally, and it was blissful. I like said here, who describes it as blissful?
It sounds blissful.
Blissful. It was very blissful. A few weeks later, I went to see her. Remember, I said they live in different states. So probably a couple hour flight. And it was no different when I went to her. It just seemed like we were a match made in heaven, and we were even talking about how we would make things work while I'm out of the country for my next assignment. So now he's leaving, actually, in a couple of days from when I filmed this, for a year. And then he's likely to land in another country for a couple of years. So that could be a big part of this. Right? Because, they're hardly seeing each other, and now he's got to leave for a year and then go out of country for another couple of years.
Yeah, and the timing of all this is really unfortunate. Just all of this happening right before he's leaving for years.
Yeah.
Thinking about really what you're getting into and what you're committing to, even on an emotional level, knowing that and still investing.
Yeah.
So
now, that could be an easy situation where she says, look, I can't do it because you're going away. And that's what makes this situation a little bit confusing towards the end here, what we're going to get to. Because if she really wanted to end it because she just wasn't feeling it, she could have easily said, I can't do long distance.
Right.
You're going to be gone for like 2-3 years. But you're going to see the messages that led us to being like, what happened here?
Yeah.
2 days after I got home, she suddenly stopped responding to my normal texts and was very out of character. I'll spare all of the details because there are too many for this email. But essentially, a lot of nasty things happened to her that night, which included, so he says that night, like we know what that, I don't know what that night is. The night she got home? What night was it? A little confusing. But something happened one night, shortly after she came back, right? A guy that she told me had a crush on her and was a creep got a hold of her phone and sent me many hurtful texts, playing it off like it was her that was sending them, to include that she wasn't ready for a relationship and that basically I was a piece of crap. Okay. So Victoria and I were really looking closely at this, and we're really trying to scrutinize the legitimacy of whether or not there was another guy that sent these messages, or was it her?
Yeah. And I'm a much more skeptical person than Craig is, I'll tell you that for sure. And so my argument is that it sounded like she had been a little bit distant right before, as what I'm interpreting from the email. And also, he doesn't really know her that well. At this point, it's been 2 months. She's gone to go visit him. So at this point, he's been a little bit more exposed than she has. And now he's finally meeting her. And then I don't think it's a coincidence that all of this is happening right after he left.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, he might get the sense that he knows her and can trust her because they knew each other from high school. But people change, especially during those landmark years, those teen years. And you don't really start to see a lot of mental health issues even show up until late teens, early 20s. And people's personalities really start to develop. I mean, your brain isn't really fully developed until age 25 anyways. And so that's why there's a part of me that's skeptical about this. Also, why is she hanging out with a person who would do something like this?
Yeah.
Who is her friend group? Who is her support system? And what does that say about her?
Yeah.
Is it possible that somebody took her phone and sent these messages? Yes. Is it also possible that this could have been her? Maybe she had an emotional episode and was reactive? That's also possible. He doesn't know her for long enough to see all of her moods and how she reacts to different emotions.
So Victoria is not so sure that there was another guy involved with sending the messages.
Right.
Okay? Now, that's certainly a possibility. I've seen younger guys do similar things to this, like taking a girl's phone and messaging a guy to sabotage things. I've seen that over the years. So I'm not surprised that a guy would do this. His character definitely would come into question here. But that's actually going to be part of what happens a little bit further with the information. But what do you guys think? Do you think that she sent this message? Or do you think that there was a guy that took her phone and did it? Me personally, I think there was a guy who did it that she probably knew before him, probably had some feelings before him, and this guy was jealous and angry. And so he's wanting to sabotage things. So I think she probably liked both guys. And that's why he had access to the phone. So, but you're going to see some really interesting contradictions in the text message. Really, which makes it even more confusing, right? But let's go on. There's a little bit more here. She got her phone back eventually and assured me that none of the things that were said were true and that she was utterly mortified by what was said to me and what had happened to her. Okay, so this is interesting, right? She's utterly mortified. Maybe she's utterly mortified that she did it. That's a possibility. Or that something else happened, which is what I kind of feel may have gone on here. Then a couple of days later, she went completely off the grid and again didn't respond to me for a couple of days. Yesterday, she responded to my concerned messages explaining that she needs time to heal from what happened to her and reassess things. What happened seemingly had a profound impact on her, and by her words has completely toxified the neighborhood. And ultimately, she won't be speaking to them again. Okay, so if there was somebody else involved in this friends group, it does sound like she's cut that off, assuming that would be true.
Right.
If it's true, right?
The other question I had was, why didn't he meet these friends? It kind of sounds like, as she's speaking, that this is this, group of people that's isolated from their relationship, that he doesn't have access to, that he doesn't know. And that to me is also concerning, because you would think that him being able to visit her, that she would be able to integrate him into her life. Finally, you can meet my friends, you can meet my family, if they are talking about a future together and taking things seriously.
Sure. That was only the first time he had gone there, so maybe she was a little reluctant.
Possible.
So, it's not, if it had been an ongoing thing, then for sure. But who knows what she was thinking with that.
Right.
And we don't even know how long that visit was, do we? I don't think he said. Okay. At the end of the day, though, she told me that it wasn't fair to drag her through the healing process. Now, that's the thing that's confusing, right? Healing? Are you healing because somebody took your phone and used it to send messages? That there was some kind of big argument with all these people or all these relationships that blew up in some degree? I don't know. It just feels, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? And she wished me the absolute best. I know that I want her forever. And that's a big jump. You've only seen her twice, and you just started dating. How do you know you want her forever? So that's a concern for me about him, right? I don't think you should be thinking about forever after you've seen somebody 2 weekends or 2 weeks or whatever it was.
And that could also be back to what I was saying, where he did know her previously. So it's the illusion that, wow, I really know this person. I've seen them grow up to a degree, and I've seen them through different stages of their life. But how well do you really know them? When you're in a romantic relationship, things are totally different because your attachment system is triggered.
Okay. I want to know whether or not you think she will reach out again and try to rekindle things after having time to heal. All right. And he sent a text message and a screenshot, and we'll get back to that question in a minute. But I want to read this text message. We don't often read the text messages, but this one was really kind of all over the place, isn't it? It is. Let me go ahead and get through this. It's a long text message. So I'm going to paraphrase parts of this message because it's long, and I want to leave it a little bit more ambiguous. But basically, she apologizes for kind of disconnecting, that she's not in a good headspace right now. She needs some time to heal after some circumstances that happened. She says not only with this guy using the phone and texting, but the toxicity of the neighborhood and the drama that it all caused. Now, that's a little bit odd for somebody just taking the phone and just using it to text somebody's boyfriend, right? So there's a little bit more here that was concerning to me. She says, there was an unfortunate circumstance that happened, and I really don't want to talk or think about it right now. I don't know. When somebody says something like that, that stands out to me. That feels almost like something happened with this guy, whether he forced himself on her or pushed her to do something she didn't want to do. It feels like something happened here.
I have an issue with this message, and the reason why is because this is not clear communication at all. She doesn't owe you an explanation or details about it, but the fact that she mentions it, there's an element of, I want you to worry about me. Now, I don't know that for sure. I'm just speculating, but I feel like this could have been explained in different ways. And I don't know if she necessarily needed to add that detail if something happened. Maybe she's saying in the future she'll want to talk about it. Maybe she just wants you to understand where she's at. But I could see the person who wrote this email is probably extremely confused, worried, and feels a little bit helpless because I'm sure there's an element of he wants to protect her.
I feel some guilt in here too, because she's saying that she feels bad that he got wrapped up in it. And that makes me feel like there was something prior with this other guy going on, that she got wrapped up into that. Because you wouldn't really get wrapped up into a one-night incident like that. That doesn't make any sense to me. So we're both looking at how valid is this text message? How authentic does it seem? What are her reasons authentic, or is she kind of just saying something to get out of this? Now, like I said earlier, it would be very easy for her to say, you're going out of town, you're going to be out of the country for a couple years, right? So I don't want to do long distance.
Right.
So why not just do that? It would make a lot more sense if you just didn't want to be with the person, right?
This is clearly a lot more complex than just face value. We're also talking about a person who, in the very least, has had a traumatic experience from the loss. We don't know what her early childhood was like. We don't know what her growing up experiences were like. We don't know what her triggers are. We don't really know how she reacts under different emotions. There just hasn't been enough time or data to really understand her. And I think that's part of the issue too, and what makes it a lot more confusing.
Yeah, there's a little bit more that I just want to get to. Basically, she says, please understand, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not okay emotionally with what happened to me. I need to unplug, heal from all of this, and I feel bad about dragging you along with my healing process. I appreciate the wonderful person you are and all the time that we had together, and basically wishes him well and all the best. So the thing to me that's a little bit confusing is, if she was lying, why say, like, in other words, why would she call him these names, a piece of crap, and say all that stuff to him, but then say you're a wonderful person, unless she was drunk one night and just
it's possible.
had some meltdown or something like that. But it's very confusing. There's a lot of mixed messages in how this all played out.
Right.
Was there another guy who sent those messages, or was that just an excuse to cover up for her behavior?
It's a possibility. And I think on his end, there's a lot of assumptions here too. He had mentioned, oh, she has overcome the loss. Now she's happy and healthy and living with her daughter. Appearances are not always reality. It sounds like, at least in this very moment, she's dealing with something highly emotional, whether it's something that just happened with her and this person who may or may not have taken her phone, whatever it was. She's not in an emotionally stable place for a relationship. Who knows if that emotional state was pre-existing? We don't know.
Yep. Okay, so let's go back to the question. Will he hear from her? What do you think?
In my personal opinion, I think that he will. And just because there is some implication in this message of, right now, this is where I'm at. It's not saying I don't want to talk to you again. It's not saying I can never see us together. It's not saying we're not compatible. It's more of a, this is happening to me right now. This is what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility in my mind that she will reach out at a later point. Maybe at a later point, she will be even more open about what has happened. If they do have this existing connection and she can trust him and be open about what she's feeling.
I also agree with you. I do think he's going to hear from her. Now, I know he's going out of the country. By the time this video is out, I'm sure he's already gone. So that will feel a lot safer to her to communicate with him about what happened.
Right.
Because now he can't say, let me come see you. I want to come see you this weekend. And so having that space of being in another country and him not being able to leave, I think will give her a lot more flexibility to be vulnerable with him, knowing that he can't impose himself and see her physically.
Right. And I imagine just going through the loss of a spouse at such a young age, it's probably very triggering for her to get emotionally close and have that person leave. So I wonder if when he went to go visit her, just him leaving and for those first couple days, her being distant, then this whole thing happened. To me, it's not a coincidence that these events played out the way that they did. And so if you do decide to pursue a relationship with her in the future, I know that you will be out of the country. I'm not sure how that will work out. But in the future, at some point, this situation is going to take a lot of patience because there's trauma involved.
Yeah, I agree. You need to get more in the story about the husband, when he passed away, when his birthday was, because around those times you might see that she's distant or, overcome with trauma. She's still thinking, oh my gosh, that was my son. I think it was a son. Son's dad, child's dad.
Yeah.
But I think she's going to reach out. And if I had to guess, I'd say the holidays.
I could see that happening.
He'll be gone for a couple months by then. That will give her some time. And if she's on the fence, she'll probably use that as an excuse.
Right. And she didn't completely ghost you. I think her sending that message is her acknowledging that she has been distant. So that to me is a good sign. She could have just never responded to you again. That could have been an option, but she did decide to at least try to explain herself.
So what do you guys think? Did she send the messages? Was there a guy that took the phone? We're kind of split on it.
Yeah.
I could see either of them happening, but I have seen guys do stuff like that. And it does sound like something happened with that guy that night. She could have been just saying it as an excuse to end this, but to me, the easier excuse could have been, you're leaving.
Right.
So why not just do that?
Yeah.
That's
Emotions aren't logical.
That's true. That's true. What do you guys think? You can leave a comment. And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can get it on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. And of course, Coach Victoria is available.
I'm here to talk if you need.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to sign up with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.